This evening we're fortunate to have Britton with us. Brandon is over here on my left, and I'm going to let him come up in a moment. But I just want to tell you a little bit about him. He is not a stranger to us. He was here at the 2006 Vacation Bible School and spoke to us at that time. He is currently the minister at Fairview Church of Christ, not in Fairview, Tennessee. I want to make sure I get that distinguished. He is in Pulaski, Tennessee. Fairview is a congregation on the north part of the county, and he is currently there and has been there since 2007. Up to that point, he had been at the East Hill Church of Christ, sharing pulpit responsibilities there with Brother Paul Sane, David's brother that spoke to us last night. And Brandon graduated in 1999, by the way, from the Memphis School of Preaching and started working with East Hill at that time. He still is part of a weekly radio program there in Giles County. He's the author of various class material for teens, and he has written for several brotherhood publications out there too. He's a speaker often in gospel meetings, lectureship, and in youth days in several states. He also brought his family this evening with him, Jade, his wife, and two sons, Reese and Case, and they've gone to our Bible classes this evening. And Leslie Tennant, one of his eldest daughters, is here tonight. Leslie's dad and I played high school football together, and I think Leslie is currently a nursing student at University of North Alabama. Is that right? So we're glad to have Brandon and his family here this evening with us. So we're going to let him speak to us once again on the theme of fishing with the Master. His topic tonight is prepare to share. Brandon, come on up, please.
We are glad to be up here with you tonight, and it's a little bit farther than I remembered it being last time that I came up here. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that even though it's only been about 3 or 4 years, this area has transformed, or at least the area between here and 24 has transformed significantly in the last 3 years. I remember the hospital that was down there, but a whole bunch of that other stuff I don't think was there the last time I came through here. But we're glad to be up here with you tonight. And it's funny when you get to travel, the world gets smaller. The bigger it gets, the smaller it gets. You go farther and farther from home, and you wind up realizing that you're connected to people all over the world. And of course, Phil and I have known each other for years. His daddy was my freshman high school football coach and one of my Bible class teachers when I was growing up. We both grew up in the same congregation at East Hill and Pulaski. So I've known he and his family just essentially my entire life. And then Denise, she's Coggins to us, but I guess Bicknell to y'all. Her daddy was one of our deacons when I grew up at East Hill, and I've known her pretty much all my life as well. And then I get here, and I think I've just run into everybody that I have past connections to, and I run into Reuben and Sylvia. And Reuben and I got to know each other during a gospel meeting at Diana several years ago. And they were down there helping out with the work that precedes the singing. And man, we just had a ball. We got to know each other and just had so much fun. And I told him I had no idea this is where they worship. And I was just tickled to death to get to run into them. And so we're glad to see some familiar faces. And hopefully the rest of you, some of you will become familiar faces, even if you're not yet. Now, go ahead and open your Bible up to John chapter 6. That's where we're going to be studying mostly tonight. We're going to jump over in Matthew chapter 14 a little bit, but primarily we're going to be in John chapter 6. I want to say a few words, and probably every speaker you have is going to do this, and so it may get tedious by the end of the week, but hopefully it's early enough in the week that you haven't heard this 5 times already. But we want to talk a little bit about your theme, the fishing with the Master. It's always interesting to me, whenever you read in the New Testament about the apostles going fishing, funny thing is, we know for a fact that 4 of those apostles were expert fishermen. Peter, Andrew, brothers, and then James and John, brothers. And the Bible tells us that they were kind of partners or co-workers in what seems to be a family fishing business. And so those guys probably knew each other their entire lives. Matter of fact, I'm going to get to speak here in about 2 weeks on the subject of Peter and John and being co-workers maybe for their entire lives. The fact that they likely grew up fishing together. And then, of course, they became apostles together in the early days of the evangelism of the church. But when you think about these guys being fishermen, There's a difference between being fishermen and going fishing. Now, some of you, I doubt it living where we live in Middle Tennessee, but it's possible. But I doubt any of you are fishermen. Now, you may enjoy going fishing, but when I think of a fisherman is somebody who does it for a living. They don't do it for recreation. It's not just to get away and have fun. A fisherman is somebody who gets up in the morning, he puts his boots on, he gets out on the boat, and he goes out and he fishes all day. And that's what he does every day. Not for fun, but for a living. Now, we probably go fishing. We like to fish. It's enjoyable recreation. I tell people I don't like to fish. I like to catch fish. If I'm not catching fish, I'm not having fun. Now, some of you just enjoy being out there on the river or on the creek bank or on the pond. Just you enjoy being out there where it's quiet and peaceful. But I don't like it unless I'm catching fish. Well, these guys didn't like it unless they were catching fish either, but for a totally different reason. Because if they didn't catch fish, they didn't have food. If they didn't catch fish, they didn't have fish to sell. They didn't have money. They didn't have the things that they needed just to do their basic living if they didn't catch fish. But here's the funny thing. Do you realize that every time in the Bible that it mentions Peter, Andrew, James, and John going fishing, they never caught any fish? Now, if you are a professional fisherman and you go fishing and you don't catch fish, you might want to look into a different career. There's one exception. Every time they go fishing, they don't catch fish until Jesus tells them where to fish. Now suddenly, when Jesus tells them where to fish, all of a sudden they have multitudes of fish. So many that their nets break, that their boats begin to sink. So many that they're convinced instantly that this isn't just a man, this isn't just a carpenter. And by the way, if you're a professional fisherman and a carpenter has to tell you where to catch fish, you're probably in the wrong business, because carpenters don't spend a lot of time on water. But that's the only time they ever caught fish. And the reason is because they were fishing with the master. And there's a powerful, powerful principle that's laid out in the very outset, even before we get into our specific topic for tonight, and that is, if you want to succeed at whatever it is you are and whatever it is you do, I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm not saying that you can't have success. I'm just telling you, if you want true success, lasting success, if you want to make an impact on the world, whatever you're good at, do it with the Lord. It may be that you are a talented singer. Well, you can obviously get rich and famous as a singer. You may not even have to believe in God. You may have absolutely no concern about the Lord whatsoever, and you can still get rich and famous and be known all around the world. But let's be honest, when you look historically at folks who are talented singers, and we might debate on whether or not they're talented singers, but at least they're talented in becoming famous or making a name for themselves by singing. Look at how many of them were absolutely miserable and had terrible lives that ruined and wrecked their existence. If you don't know, by the way, if y'all haven't heard, Michael Jackson died about 2 weeks ago. I didn't know if y'all had heard that up here in LaVergne or not, but we just found out about it yesterday in Pulaski. One of the most famous people to ever live. Why? Because he's a singer. Talented singer. It amazed me. I will have to say this, in some of the coverage that was given, it did amaze me that when he was 6 or 7 years old, he was performing and making hit records. I mean, I've raised 2 boys to 13 or to 14 and 11. I remember them when they were 6. I can't imagine them being up on stage entertaining thousands of people and selling millions of records. And it's an amazing talent, historic talent, legendary talent. Would you want to trade places with his life?